My name is Sam Price, and every single Friday I do a macro technical analysis video where I break down Bitcoin, the NASDAQ, the S&P futures, total market cap of all of crypto. We look at Bitcoin dominance, Tether dominance, we look at the DXY, gold, and more. Silver also riding to the upside. Let's take a look at what's happening here for Bitcoin. Then we're going to break down the rest of the world markets and show you a big picture of the macro technical analysis, so you can have a pretty good idea of what's happening and not just get stuck on the tiny time frames. So here we are looking at Bitcoin. I just ended a live and it looked like Bitcoin is going to dump further to the downside, at least test 118,600. But that's short term, 1 minute. I want to give you the big picture. I want to take a look at the monthly chart and see what I see happening for Bitcoin on the macro idea here. So first thing you want to look at is you want to see the monthly chart, right? And you can see the monthly is forming a bit of a rising wedge. And it says we might just go sideways for 1 or 2 more months. It almost suggests we could go, everyone thinking we're going to pump November and December, we might actually just go sideways for those 2 months. And then when the real, rate cuts come in there, December, it really kind of adds to the fire. And then we really get the bigger pumps in January. So it's kind of suggesting we might get 2 months of sideways price action, November, maybe December. And somewhere December or January 1st, that's when we'll be tight enough for a bigger move. So it's not saying we're overly bearish just yet. For me to be bearish, I'd say the monthly has to close below 108,000. You see, because we created a really nice support there. So for me, I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin as long as it keeps monthly candles above 108,000. I don't want to see it close below 115. That will definitely give some concern. But right now, if we just look at the monthly so far, it could definitely continue sideways and break on out of here. I'm not in love with it closing big wicks to the up from the downside there each time on each month, but it's not the most bearish scenario just yet. And we haven't closed the monthly just yet. So we still have some time to see where that could go. I want to look at the weekly time frame and zoom out. And today was pretty bearish. I got to be honest. Low volume Friday. After the all-time high, we have kind of started to come back down. And that weekly is giving back a lot of its pump that it took. And that week, as we were in Token 24/9 in Singapore, the biggest crypto event in the world, seemed like it got some juice for Bitcoin. Bitcoin got some action there. One thing it's doing right now, though, is testing this $119,500 level. One thing I want to see is on the macro scale, you do not want to see the weekly candle close below that. Right now, we're below it, but we could easily wick back above it. If we close below this on the weekly, you would have to assume the weekly's coming down to 115,000. Then it could come back down to test 112 and then that 108, 109 area yet again, really 109,000. So this is the beginning of a bigger dump if Bitcoin closes below 119,500. I'd like to see this get back above this and make that a wick on the weekly. So if this closes in 2 days, this is Friday afternoon, if this closes in about 2.5 days below 119.2, 119.5, we got to start assuming that the weekly is going to come down and test 115,000, and then you got to start thinking that 112 is on the table yet again. As we said before, if you make this a tight channel, you can see, hey, we did hit the top of the channel. We might have to come back down, and we could even consolidate here for the next few weeks before the bigger breakout. So a dump down here wouldn't be the worst, but losing this trend line and coming down to the 5,200 would be. I wouldn't want to see that. You do have a gap in the VRVP here too, which kind of tells you that you may have to come back down and test these key levels. So right now, it's looking a little more bearish than bullish for Bitcoin. If the weekly closes like this, that's a tweezer top. That is more bearish to me, and it would suggest that the next weekly candle is a red one that sends us further somewhere down here to test the 21-day moving average and 113,000, 115K for Bitcoin. So it's looking a little more bearish than bullish. We'll check back in with our weekly candle close video, but right now, that's going to be a bearish close for Bitcoin on the week, and you would have to assume we're going to either go slowly down or sideways for the next few weeks instead of a massive pump out. Now, we could get a massive pump out, but it's saying that's going to be weeks ahead and not going to happen immediately. I could be wrong. This could turn green and out of nowhere rip. You never know. I'm open-minded to believe I know nothing but the fact of my own ignorance. I'm open-minded to believe I know nothing but the fact of my own ignorance, but, you never know. I stay open-minded, but right now the probability is bearish. We take a look at the total market cap in all of cryptocurrency, total, right, which shows all of crypto and kind of the same scenario, right? When we look at it, we're still inside the rising wedge. It's not bad. We didn't breach any trend lines. Everything still looks good. But again, you end up closing a candle below 3.82 trillion. And you can see how we got rejected by 4.2, and we did lose the $4 trillion mark, which is kind of like, not the best. So what could happen is, you could see these as shoulders. This could be a head and a right shoulder. We could dump right back down here, somewhere to 3.3, or we can stay inside here. But if anything, it looks like we're getting somewhat of a pullback and sideways price action, and not that monster move up that looked like it was going to happen there on the weekly. So I see sideways price action again, and I don't want to see us close the weekly below 3.69. We close below 3.69. You have to assume this could be a bigger pullback on the macro scale. We take a look at total 3, which is the entire market cap of all the altcoins, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it still looks healthy to me. I'd have to see it breach this trend line for me to really start to think things are that bad. So it says, hey, 2-3 more weeks of tight price action, and we could still get this Santa rally, November, December altcoin pump. It would be cool if Bitcoin went sideways and the altcoins went crazy. We don't have to get Bitcoin to pump. It just can go sideways, and if altcoins start to rip, dominance could let go a little bit, and we could get a move. That makes me want to look at Bitcoin dominance. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. So you can see it scaling to the upside. And you can see the last time I drew something, I drew a flag that looked like it wanted to break out. And it says, hey, be careful. It looks like we are going to start scaling further to the upside. I even did tether up. Funny that I usually don't, but I tethered up because I was in a big alt position and I knew I could take a pretty big hit. So I stepped back from that position and, let it kind of, I had to pass it by until we had better prices. So the last time I looked at Bitcoin dominance, it did look like it was going to take a move up, and it did. Tight moving averages in the ascending triangle, and this just assumes we're going to go higher here. So I would watch your altcoins, and if Bitcoin takes a nasty dump, people are going to sell their altcoins into Bitcoin pretty fast. That's going to produce Bitcoin dominance to go up. Now we're going to look at Tether dominance. If Bitcoin dominance and Tether dominance are both pumping, not a good sign. That means people are kind of getting into basically a safe haven, so to speak. So we were looking for Tether dominance to flag. Instead, it dumped down. It made like a downward trending flag and then absolutely ripped out that flag. But it did look like we were going to get some type of move. Look, my target was up there and we got a pump. So if you look at it on the daily, it's still below. It's still in somewhat of a downtrend here. It doesn't look like it's on an amazing pump back up. If anything, it looks like it's more like in a symmetrical or like a downtrending, descending type of triangle. I'd like to see it, maybe pump up a little more, but make this right shoulder. So, possibly people saying, oh yeah, but if things change, why would you want to be in a dollar, linked asset? And when they're going to print more money, when that interest rate is getting cut, it makes you wonder, right? So as long as the daily stays below the 200 moving average, I see this as just kind of, a fear factor pump up that doesn't do much. If this gets above here, that's going to be a more sustainable idea. That means Bitcoin could possibly be going on more of a bear run here. But as long as we stay below the daily 200 moving average, and I see this kind of slump, and I make sure we don't get back above 4.72%, for me, this is just a last attempt to get a little bit of a bounce, which could produce a nice short, nice long entries for these dips in altcoins. So I'm watching it closely, but I'm not going to be too stressed until we get back above the daily 200 moving average. If that happens, then we'd have to say, okay, something big is happening. But right now, I just see right shoulders. We're just possibly repositioning before we kind of settle off one more time. Definitely a sketchy time to be in the market, right? Like you have a lot of people screaming bear, a lot of people saying we're about to pump. And I just have conviction with what I've done the last few years, and I'm just going to wait out the storm no matter what. Again, I don't have all the answers. But what I don't do is I don't panic sell, and I stick to my original plan, and I put in what I'm willing to lose. That way I'm able to withstand the storms. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing I say and do should be taken as such. And just, I'm just kind of showing you and talking you through how I get through all these ups and downs in price action. Next thing I would like to look at is the S&P ES1, which took a little dip today, but to me, not as, we'll see here. So listen, the last time I put it out, I said we were going to bounce from the $6,470 level, and we did. You could even move the stop loss to break even at this point, and boom. And today was great. And then there was some nasty tariff news, right, against China that kind of got the market spooked on a Friday, low volume. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if this bounces. Look out for the right shoulder. It might make a right shoulder and dump lower, but we're also looking for, they're printing this money. And so even every time they come up with a bearish news, it also creates an opportunity to buy something lower And then people are like, well, and they're going to print the dollar. So I wouldn't be surprised if this bounces back up, defies the right shoulder, gets tight, and we just continue on this trajectory that I'm talking about. We double bottom basically off of 66.71. So I'm a little more bullish than most people here in a time where a lot of people are full of fear. Look for this to bounce. Now, it could make a right shoulder. At that point, we'll reassess, but it looks like it could take 1, 2, 3. Like, that might take 6 to 7 days for that right shoulder to form. I'm expecting a bounce pretty quick off this bearish Friday news as we rebound into Monday, and then we go from there. I took a look at the NASDAQ, and it's basically the same scenario, exact same scenario. We were here before. Look, shoulder, head, that was the dip right there. This looks like the same dip. Nasty dip, nasty dip. They're going to print this money and print us right out of here. They're printing too much money. I don't see how they couldn't print this right out of this to the upside, and they have to print money, so there you have it. I'm looking for this pump to continue, and I know I'm defying the odds here, and most people are bearish, but that looks like a beautiful opportunity to be buying the stock market on the NASDAQ. But again, I'm not a financial advisor, and you got to figure this out for yourself. Gold also absolutely destroying the game and continuing to rip. We talked about it making the blow off top all the way to $4,000 an ounce. Remember, we called 4,000 so long ago out this flag. Tight moving averages, high volume node. This is how I trade. I made this trade today on Bitcoin on the 5-minute time frame. Same exact scenario, and bang, we hit 4,000. Now what for gold? Well, they're going to continue to print money. People will probably convert some of the gold ETFs and some of the money they've made and use that for stocks. So you're going to see that conversion. But a lot of people aren't going to leave their positions either. I see sideways price action for gold for the next week or two, somewhere by November 4th or 5th. I guess a month or two. I see by November, somewhere by November 4th, I see it starting to break out and headed up to $4,500 an ounce. They're just going to continue to print this money. I see gold absorbing that and going further to the upside. Okay. So that's kind of the bigger picture for what I see happening. I wouldn't stress the NASDAQ or the S&P. Just a Sunday afternoon dump, taking advantage of that low liquidity, get the fear going. And then, but Bitcoin is also losing some key levels. We talked about the weekly. I showed you how important 119.5 is on the weekly and even the monthly. Those key levels need to hold. If we close them on Sunday night, you got to start thinking that we're going to go lower down to 117 and then possibly to 112. So there is some kind of sketchiness going on for Bitcoin. I think the NASDAQ and the S&P, they look a little stronger right now in the market. That's your macro technical analysis video. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you can find out when I post my next video. I go live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. If you like this TA and the way it was presented, you're going to like it even more. If you join my Discord, go to cryptolifer.com to find out more. Crypto is life.